Hi everyone, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how I actually edit my photos. This is a photo that I took from my drone. This is a raw image, and we're going to go ahead and walk through at a high level how I took this image, imported it into Lightroom, and went from this raw image to this final image. So raw, final. And obviously, I actually have a premium course on Udemy, which is called How to Become a Master Drone Pilot in 2 Weeks, in which I, go through full-fledged details of Adobe Lightroom, along with the details of the photography and videography tips. I know we primarily talked about photos here, but obviously I didn't go into the depths that I go into my other course. And obviously in that course, I do show you how to start your own aerial photography and videography drone business. So do check that out. But in this video, I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the basics of how to polish an image that is taken from your drone, especially when it was captured in its RAW format. So again, this is the RAW format, and let's go ahead and get started. So this is Lightroom, and in here, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So if you haven't used Lightroom, I would recommend that you take a quick crash course, or actually my course on Udemy actually walks you through the basics of Lightroom if you don't know, but I'm assuming that you've used Lightroom before. So I've imported the photo into the library component, and I'm going to go ahead and develop it. And the develop panel now gives me the full details on the right, so we're going to go ahead and use that one by one. So just to get started, the first thing that I play around with is the temperature. And for you to get the right optimal setting, you have to know certain things. The first thing you have to know is this is a wintry image, and so you're not going to have a hot looking photo, so it's not going to be very warm, and so you want to make it a little bit cold, so a little bit more blue than what it was shot at. Because obviously this is winter and generally the environment is blue. So that's that. I'm going to go ahead and increase the exposure a little bit because I shot this photo a little bit underexposed on purpose. And highlights are looking pretty good, but I'm going to go ahead and reduce the highlights just to bring out the information on the mountains a little bit more, because by default, it's a little bit white, so I'm going to go ahead and reduce that just to get some clarity. And I'm going to crank up the shadows, obviously, because shadows is where our main subject lies, the castle. I'm going to increase the whites for sure, because everything here is snowy, and that will look really good. So the whites will just turn out whiter. And obviously, if I just press Y on my keyboard, right away you can tell that, wow, just a few tweaks already made such a big difference, right? The image was dark, we lightened it up. We made it a little bit more blue to give it that wintry feeling, and the whites obviously played a huge impact. And now the blacks, especially the roads and the cracks here, we're just going to shrink it down a little bit to give it that strong contrast look. Now, because we have architecture in front of us, I'm going to crank up the clarity a little bit just to make the image a little bit more crisp. And vibrance, color vibrance, obviously I'm going to go ahead and increase that a little bit just to give a little bit life to that photo. And if I did nothing else and just left it at that, this is a pretty good looking image that is ready to be exported. But obviously we're not going to stop there in the drone basics photo. I think you need to understand that at a basic level this is good, but I do want to make sure that I go a little bit deeper to help you understand what are some of the other tweaks that I make. So you see there's a streak of light coming in, and that is obviously yellow and golden in color. So what I'd like to do is kind of make that a little bit more prominent. So if I take the orange toggle and just play with that, you can see if I reduce it, it didn't really do that much of a difference. But if I reduce the yellow, so I'm going to go ahead and increase the yellow and orange, and that way these two should be a lot more prominent now. Here we go. Make that a little bit more orangey, and so that way if I do before and after, there should be a little bit of a difference there. That's a saturation, great. And I'm going to go ahead and just increase the highlight details. And sometimes what I do with images is I literally just play with them to see the impact that they have. And in this case here, the split toning isn't really having a strong enough impact, so I'm just going to leave it at its current setting. I don't need to sharpen it up more because when you sharpen the image more than it is, what it is right now, you're going to get a lot more graininess. And you can see that this image was shot at 100 ISO, and even then there's a little bit of graininess that I'm not too comfortable with. So I just crank up noise reduction just by that much, and it reduces it a little bit. But because there's architecture here, you don't need to crank it up that much, because then it gives you this, like, you know, crayon kind of look, and you'll see what I mean when the impact is there, because everything is soft, right? You see there. Now I'm going to reduce it back. If I crank it up, everything is now very soft and smooth, and generally with architecture you want to have a sharper look, so I'm going to leave it there. Not really a huge difference. Okay, the X factor that I like to use when it comes to editing is this brush tool. Now the brush tool is selective editing. Everything else we were doing before was editing the entire image. Once I balance the image, I like to use the brush tool to then selectively edit certain areas of the image. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to crank up the clarity. The effect that I choose generally is going to be well, it's custom right now, so that's good. And I'm going to crank up the clarity, and what I'm going to do is make this sharper, and you can tell that now I'm selectively editing certain parts of the castle. And once I've applied my brush, if I just hover over this, it tells me where I've applied the brush. I can go ahead and increase the shadows, reduce the highlights, increase the exposure if I wanted to, reduce the blacks, increase the whites, and so on and so forth. Now you get the idea. Now, obviously I did a lousy job there, so if I was to do a proper job, what I would do is zoom in and use the erase tool to and if I hover over this, you see I just need to make sure that the castle is impacted and not the tree. So then I'm going to use the erase tool to just take that information away from the trees, because it's just a castle that I want. And obviously you just need to spend time, and in this course I want to make sure I help you understand how to use the tools. The impact to your image is going to be as good as the time that you spend on it. But this is a tool that I like to use a lot, the brush tool. I'm going to do one more just for the purpose of this example. I'm going to click on new, because that was the old brush. And now I'm going to go ahead and make these mountains sharp. Now they're not turning sharp because this toggle here is on low. And now if I crank this up, this is when it's not clear, this is when it's clear. Don't crank it up to 100%, it makes it look a little fake and just not that enjoyable. And once I've applied my brush, I'm going to go ahead and reduce the blacks, increase the shadows, maybe reduce the shadows, reduce the shadows, increase the highlights because of those mountain caps. And now you get a nice balanced image, and maybe make them a little bit more warm because the sun is hitting them instead of making them cold. And that looks okay. And so here you have a quick before and after. And again, these are some of the quick tools that I use to edit my photos, and right away you can see a difference. And again, if you want to understand every single one of these and get more and more examples in my full course on how to become a drone pilot in 2 weeks, and how to start your business, in that course I actually walk you through a lot more details than what I've covered right now. So I think I hope this is helpful. I hope you got an understanding of how I edit my photos. I hope I walked you through the entire journey and a path of how I go from planning to filming to editing, and now you have a side-by-side view. And I hope it gives you confidence and full context in terms of how I got to these results. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Again, I do have that full course that you can go if you enjoyed this course. to get deeper perspective on video, on photo, and so on and so forth. I have also shared my Instagram handle. I do update my Instagram quite a bit on my personal Instagram account, so you can follow me there to stay updated on some of the so on some of the work that I produce there. I don't have a lot of followers on it right now, and I'm not looking to add some crazy amount of following. But for students who have taken my course, feel free to follow me. If you have any questions in terms of how I did some of the work, let me know. If you want to share some of the work, I'd be happy to see some of the work that I was able to influence you with, and that'd be great. And if you have any questions, let me know, and we will see you on some of the course discussion panels. Thank you.